From disaster to done. The East Texas Restoration Report. From disaster to done.
What if I told you that that 30-page document your contractor hands you after a major disaster isn't actually a bill at all?
I mean, it certainly looks like a bill.
Oh, exactly. It definitely has a terrifying price tag at the very bottom, just like a bill. But treating it like one is, well, it's exactly why property owners end up losing thousands of dollars and, just feeling completely helpless in the process.
Yeah, helpless is the right word.
Welcome to our deep dive. You're probably here because you want to get a firm grip on complex topics without getting buried in the technical mud. You want the insight, you want it fast, and you want to walk away actually understanding the hidden mechanics of how things work.
And today, we're pulling back the curtain on a document that almost every property owner will, unfortunately, eventually face. Yet, virtually no one outside the construction industry truly understands it.
Right.
We're drawing our insights today from some highly specific source material. Excerpts from Mastering the Restoration Estimate, specifically Episode 6. How to read an estimate like a pro.
Which is huge, because the stated mission of this material is ambitious, right? It's to completely demystify restoration estimates for you, the property owner.
Yep.
Because right now, for most people, staring at a flooded living room and then being handed basically a phone book of codes and numbers it's a terrifying mystery. Okay, let's unpack this.
What's fascinating here is how the source material immediately challenges our basic assumptions. Because we are conditioned to view an estimate purely as a financial document, right? Like just a price tag for a disaster.
Right, the bottom line.
Exactly. But the material reframes this entirely. It argues that an estimate is actually a map.
A map.
Yeah, it's a highly detailed, sequential map of a physical project.
Yeah.
If you only look at the final destination, the price, you have no idea how you got there.
So you have no control over the journey.
Precisely. Learning how to read the topography of that map is an absolute survival skill for anyone who owns property.
Okay, a map, not a bill. I like that. But to demystify this massive stack of paper for someone whose kitchen is currently underwater, we can't just skip to the final destination.
No, we have to look at the terrain first.
Right. So the source material talks heavily about the estimate breakdown and the fundamental structural units of the document, which are called line items.
Correct. You cannot comprehend the final price until you understand the smallest components that build that price. Line items are basically the atomic level of the estimate.
The atomic level. When I hear line items, my mind immediately goes to, like, a long grocery receipt.
Sure.
But based on the material, it's vastly more intense than that. It's not just a receipt saying, produce $20.
Not at all.
It's like a receipt that says apples, Honeycrisp, organic, 3.2 pounds. And then, this is the crazy part, it also charges you for the exact number of minutes the stock boy spent placing those apples on the shelf.
Yeah, and the specific cart used to transport them.
Yes. And a fraction of the electricity used to light that specific aisle. It is a wildly granular level of detail, line by agonizing line.
That is actually a very accurate translation of the concept. It encompasses materials, labor, equipment, and time. All of it.
But let me push back on this, because I know exactly what I would feel and what our listener is probably feeling right now.
Go for it.
If I'm already stressed, right, my house is a mess, and someone hands me a 40-page document filled with thousands of these hyper-specific line items detailing every single screw, piece of tape, and minute of labor, doesn't that naturally cause panic rather than clarity? I mean, human beings suffer from information overload. When a property owner looks at a document that thick, isn't the natural psychological reaction to just shut down and blindly sign it to make the pain stop?
It's a completely natural reaction. The sheer volume of data is, well, it's intimidating.
Yeah.
But let's play out the alternative. Imagine your entire first floor is ruined by a burst pipe. The contractor walks in, looks around, and just hands you a single piece of paper with one sentence on it.
Just one sentence.
Yeah. Fix first floor, $65,000.
Oh, right. Okay, when you put it like that, the single sentence is actually vastly more terrifying.
Precisely. Because in that single sentence scenario, the process is a complete black box. You have zero idea what they're actually doing behind the scenes.
You don't know if they're ripping everything out or just putting a Band-Aid on it.
Exactly. Are they replacing the subfloor or just drying it? Are they using premium paint or builder grade? Breaking a massive project down into thousands of specific line items actually removes the mystery.
Even if it requires a little mental endurance up front to process it all.
Yes. The source material emphasizes that these line items are the fundamental vocabulary of the estimate.
So instead of paying for a magical black box, you are paying for a highly specific set of verifiable actions.
Exactly. When a project is broken down line by line, you are essentially reading a chronological story of your home being put back together.
Like reading a script.
Yeah. You see the demolition of the wet drywall,
Yeah.
then the removal of the debris, then the daily rental cost of the dehumidifier,
And the antimicrobial treatments and so on.
right? Then the installation of the new drywall, the taping, the mudding, the painting. It forces the chaos of a disaster into a very strict logical order.
Okay, so the detail isn't there to confuse you. It's there to prove to you that the work is real. It's evidence.
Exactly.
But hold on, if the line items prove the work is real, that still leaves a glaring vulnerability, right?
How so?
Well, if I'm looking at a line item for, say, installing hardwood floors, a contractor could still theoretically charge me $10,000 for something that should only cost $2,000.
Ah.
How does simply breaking the work into small pieces actually protect my wallet?
That is the perfect pivot point, because it moves us from the structure of the document to the mechanics of the pricing. And this is where property owners make their biggest mistake.
Okay.
They see the line item for the floor, and their eyes dart immediately to the final cost at the far right of the page.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the absolute gut instinct for anyone holding a long, complicated document is to immediately skip the 50 pages of vocabulary and flip to the very last page to see the bottom line.
And the source material explicitly warns us that obsessing over that final price tag while completely ignoring what actually builds it is a massive trap.
Right.
To understand the price, we have to untangle two concepts that people constantly confuse: scope and pricing.
Let's define those, because if I don't know the difference, I'm just looking at arbitrary numbers.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to realize that scope and pricing are two entirely separate, independent mechanisms. Scope defines the physical boundaries of the actual work. It is the what was damaged, what needs to be removed, what needs to be replaced. The scope is the undeniable physical reality of the space.
So the scope is the fence around the problem. It dictates exactly how far the work goes, like replacing 500 square feet of flooring, no more, no less.
That's a great way to visualize it. The scope is just the square footage. Now, the pricing, on the other hand, is dictated by what the source calls cost drivers.
Cost drivers.
Yes. Cost drivers are the specific variable factors applied to that scope that determine how much money it will actually take to complete it.
Wait, let me make sure I'm grasping the mechanics of this. If the scope, the 500 square feet, is fixed, what exactly are these cost drivers that cause the price to fluctuate? How does that work in reality?
Let's stick with the living room floor. The scope is 500 square feet, but the cost drivers are the variables. First, you have material quality. Are we replacing it with standard laminate or imported Brazilian cherry hardwood?
Oh, obviously that's a massive cost driver.
Right. Next, consider access and labor conditions. Do you live on the ground floor of a suburban house where workers can just back a truck up to the door?
Sure.
Or do you live on the 40th floor of a high-security urban apartment building where the workers have to reserve a freight elevator, pay for downtown parking, and pass security checkpoints every day?
I see. The physical footprint of the room hasn't changed an inch, but the friction involved in doing the work has skyrocketed.
Exactly. And the source material goes even deeper into these cost drivers, bringing in elements like depreciation and overhead.
Right, because things lose value.
Yes. For example, if your destroyed kitchen cabinets were 20 years old, a cost driver is whether your insurance policy covers the actual cash value, which deducts money because the cabinets were old, or the replacement cost, which pays for brand new ones.
And what about overhead and profit? Because I always hear that term thrown around in construction and usually as a point of contention. Is that considered a cost driver?
It absolutely is, and it's a critical one. Overhead and profit, or O&P, is a percentage added to the total cost of the job.
Okay.
It's not paying for a specific piece of wood. It's paying for the general contractor's time, their office staff, their insurance, and their ability to coordinate multiple different trades, like getting the plumber, the electrician, and the drywaller to all show up in the correct sequence.
Okay, so if you don't understand the scope and the specific cost drivers like the materials, the site access, the depreciation, and the O&P, you aren't really reading the estimate.
No, you're not.
You are just comparing two imaginary numbers. If I get two estimates and one is significantly cheaper, my gut reaction is to go with the cheaper one. But based on this logic, the cheaper one might actually be a disaster.
Often it is. If estimate A is $20,000 and estimate B is $12,000, you need to understand why before you make a decision.
Right.
Is it cheaper because they use different cost drivers, like substituting a cheaper grade of carpet? Or is it cheaper because they completely missed the scope?
Like they forgot a whole room.
Yeah. Or maybe estimate B forgot to include the demolition of the subfloor or forgot to factor in the O&P, and they are going to hit you with a massive surprise bill halfway through the project.
Wow. You really have to look at what variables are driving the calculation. But let me channel the listener for a second here.
Sure.
Because if I'm listening to this right now, I'm probably thinking, okay, I get it. Scope is the what and cost drivers are the why. But I just want my house fixed. I don't have the time or the energy to become an amateur construction auditor.
Right. Nobody does.
If a contractor tells me that the going rate for an hour of drywall installation is $200, how am I supposed to know if that's true? How realistic is it for a normal person to actually negotiate these cost drivers without getting totally taken advantage of?
That is the core anxiety of every property owner. You feel like you are flying blind.
Yeah.
And that is exactly where the concept of industry standards comes into play.
So what does this all mean? How do industry standards actually function as a safety net for someone who has no background in construction?
It functions as a safety net because it removes the guesswork. The restoration industry is not the Wild West.
Okay.
Contractors don't just wake up in the morning, look at the weather, and invent a price for drywall. The industry relies heavily on incredibly sophisticated, standardized pricing databases.
Wait, really? How exactly do these databases work? Who makes the rules?
There are specialized software platforms used by almost all major insurance companies and restoration contractors. These databases track the real-time cost of materials, labor, and equipment across the country.
Oh, wow.
And they break it down by specific zip codes. They update continuously, usually monthly.
That's incredibly specific.
Yeah. So if a hurricane hits the coast and lumber prices temporarily spike in that specific region, the software database updates to reflect that new reality.
So there is an objective mathematical baseline, a verifiable normal.
Yes, the cost of a standard 2x4 in Chicago in October is a known, agreed-upon data point, and understanding that these databases exist is a massive paradigm shift.
I can imagine.
In fact, this brings us to what the source material identifies as its primary insight. Understanding the estimate changes the entire conversation.
Changing the conversation. Let's dig into the mechanics of that change, because it implies a total shift in the power dynamic between the property owner and the contractor.
It is a profound shift in power. Think about the standard psychology of this interaction.
Okay.
Usually when a homeowner is handed an estimate, they assume a passive, almost subservient role. They view the contractor as the ultimate authority figure, they receive the bill, they stress out about the bottom line, and they reluctantly sign.
Because they don't know any better.
Right. But when you understand that the estimate is built on line items, driven by specific cost drivers, and anchored to third-party industry standards,
Yeah.
you are no longer a passive receiver.
You have the leverage to push back. But give me a concrete scenario. How does a regular homeowner actually use this in the real world to protect themselves?
Let's say you are reviewing your estimate, and you see a line item that reads, Emergency after-hours water extraction, $1,500,
Okay.
because you know how to read the line items. You don't just look at the $1,500. You look at the cost driver. The driver here is after-hours emergency. But you remember that the crew actually showed up at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Ah.
Exactly. You don't have to throw a tantrum about the project being too expensive. You just point to that specific line item and say, I see the industry standard rate applied here is for after-hours emergency labor. But the scope of work occurred during standard business hours. Can we adjust this cost driver to reflect standard rates?
Wow. That completely takes the emotion and the confrontation out of it.
It really does.
You aren't standing in a flooded room accusing them of trying to rob you. You're sitting at a table looking at the map and asking why the cartographer used the wrong symbol for a Tuesday afternoon. It makes it an objective, data-driven conversation.
It elevates the dialogue.
Yeah.
You are forcing the contractor to justify their cost drivers based on the actual physical scope of the project, rather than allowing them to rely on your ignorance of the process.
Yeah.
You're negotiating facts, not feelings.
And changing the dynamic of that conversation naturally alters the entire relationship between you and the person fixing your home, which hinges entirely on the final core theme of our source material today. Transparency.
Yes. All of this structural knowledge we've discussed, the vocabulary of the line items, the separation of scope and cost drivers, the reliance on zip code-specific industry standards, it is all machinery designed to generate transparency.
The source material provides two really striking authority quotes regarding this that I want to dissect. The first one is, if you can't read it, you can't question it.
That's a great one.
When I first read that in the notes, it hit me hard. It perfectly summarizes why people feel so victimized by the process. If it's an alien language, you are at their mercy.
Completely.
But the moment you take the time to learn the vocabulary of the line items, you unlock the ability to interrogate the process. You get your agency back.
This raises an important question, though, about the nature of that interrogation, because questioning an estimate shouldn't be inherently adversarial. A healthy project isn't a war between the homeowner and the contractor. And that is why the second authority quote from the source is so critical to understand. Clarity builds trust.
Clarity builds trust. Let me make sure I'm internalizing this correctly. The argument isn't that low prices build trust, or that completing the work in record time builds trust. It's that clarity itself is the foundation.
Precisely. A highly detailed, incredibly granular, highly readable estimate is not just a financial ledger. It is a communication tool.
Oh, I see.
It is designed to build a transparent, trustworthy relationship between all the parties involved, the property owner, the restoration company, and the insurance adjusters who are ultimately cutting the check.
Because if a contractor is willing to lay out every single action chronologically, define every specific cost driver, and show exactly how their materials align with regional industry standards, they are putting all their cards face up on the table.
Yes.
They are signaling that they have absolutely nothing to hide. The physical document itself becomes proof of their integrity.
That's the exact psychological mechanism at play. When a property owner receives a vague one-line estimate for $65,000, their brain immediately assumes they're being scammed, because the lack of detail breeds suspicion.
Naturally.
But when they receive a transparent estimate where the scope is clearly defined and the cost drivers are logically applied, the anxiety evaporates. The trust isn't based on a firm handshake, a nice logo on a truck, or a friendly smile. It is baked into the structural transparency of the data.
It's the difference between a magician saying, "Trust me, the rabbit is in the hat," and a mechanic opening the hood of your car, pointing a flashlight and saying, "Here is the frayed belt, here is the brand new belt in the box," and the database says it takes exactly 1.2 hours of labor to swap them.
That is a perfect analogy.
You don't have to blindly trust the mechanic's character because you can verify the reality of the work for yourself.
And that level of objective clarity is exactly what transforms a chaotic, highly emotional property disaster into a manageable, professional, and predictable project.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, and I want to make sure all these pieces lock together for the listener. Let's do a quick recap of the journey we just went on.
Sounds good.
We started by taking that massive, overwhelming 30-page document and breaking it down to its foundation. Demystifying those tiny line items and realizing they are just the necessary vocabulary required to map out the physical work.
Right.
Then we learned how to stop falling into the trap of obsessing over the bottom line by separating the physical scope of the work, the what, from the cost drivers and variables, the why, that dictate the price.
We also explored the mechanics of industry standards, looking at how regional pricing databases provide a safety net of normalcy. This allows the property owner to shift from a passive, fearful victim to an active participant who can negotiate based on data rather than emotion.
And finally, we saw how all of that structural knowledge culminates in true transparency, proving that a clear, heavily detailed document isn't a weapon used to confuse you, but rather the absolute foundation of trust. So, to you, the listener, whether you are actively dealing with a flooded kitchen right now, or you are just mentally preparing for the inevitable, unexpected joys of property ownership down the road, you are now a significantly more informed property owner.
Absolutely.
You no longer need to be intimidated by a giant stack of paperwork. You have the decoder ring. You know exactly how the map is drawn.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a lingering thought to mull over. Something that builds on the underlying philosophy of everything we've discussed today.
Let's hear it.
We've seen how demanding clarity and simply having the ability to read the granular line items can build trust and completely change the power dynamic in property restoration. So I want you to ask yourself, what other complex, deeply intimidating documents in your life, like opaque medical bills, dense legal contracts, or even those endless digital terms of service might completely lose their power to overwhelm you if you simply stopped accepting the bottom line and demanded this exact same level of transparent, verifiable breakdown.
Wow. That is an incredibly powerful and honestly kind of revolutionary thought to walk away with. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, the next time somebody hands you a document written in what looks like an alien language, don't panic.
Just take a breath.
Take a breath, look past the bottom line, and just ask to see the line items. Keep asking questions, keep demanding the details, and we will catch you on the next one.